Republican colleagues to vote no on the faux infrastructure bill, build a bigger bankruptcy bill. The left is putting forward. I want to tell you why we think we need to encourage them to vote no. These bills are inextricably linked right now. So let me give you some quotes from some of our friends across the aisle about putting these two bills together. Representative Jayapal said, "We're not just going to pass one small piece of the president's agenda, we're going to deliver them both. I think people feel so proud that we're still going to continue to fight for the Build Back Better agenda and the president's agenda." Here comes that tractor you were expecting. But the Progressive Caucus, assuming good resolution of those issues from the Senate side, will be excited to vote for both bills. They've linked them together. We do need the text. We do need the vote on both bills in the House at the same time. Finally, at the place we've been asking for, demanding over the last several months, which are two bills moving together in the House, and we'll get them both done. That's all from Pramila Jayapal, the head of the Progressive Caucus. Speaker Pelosi, what'd she say about doing the bills together? "I told all of you that we wouldn't go on to the infrastructure bill until we had the reconciliation bill passed by the Senate. We'll see what that is, and hopefully it will measure. It will reach the level that we need in order to pass both bills. We will pass both bills. More time was needed to reach the goal of passing both bills, which we will." Speaker Pelosi has conflated the two bills into one. Representative Jesus Garcia said, "I am not a yes until we have assurances that both bills will pass. If the president says that we have an assurance that both will go, that would be very significant for me." They've conflated these bills into one. Representative Jared Huffman said he's unwilling to decouple the infrastructure and reconciliation bills. Senator Bernie Sanders tweeted, "Rebuilding our crumbling physical infrastructure, roads, bridges, water systems is important. Rebuilding our crumbling human infrastructure, healthcare, education, climate change is more important. No infrastructure bill without a $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill." They have conflated the bills. Rashida Tlaib said, "Let me be clear, bringing the so-called bipartisan infrastructure plan to vote without the Build Back Better Act at the same time is a betrayal. We will hold the line and vote it down." Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said, "The idea that we must split them apart or have them on different dates is an artificial construct in order to take people's child care away. Realigning these two votes will bring our party together." Representative Omar said, "We need to see the two bills simultaneously move together." Representative Cori Bush said, "We need both bills to ride together." And Representative Peter Wills said, "There's no win for anybody until we get both of these bills done." The point is, and we make this for our Republican colleagues who think that these bills are separate, that they should vote for the infrastructure, so-called infrastructure package, and then they can vote no on the other. These bills are coupled and linked together. We encourage our colleagues on our side of the aisle to vote no on both bills. Even our own leader, McCarthy, has said these bills are coupled and linked. And he is right on that. We need to vote both bills down. And so I'm joined by members of the Freedom Caucus today to encourage us to remain unified on the Republican side against these horrific, dangerous bills. And right now I'll throw to my friend from Georgia, Mr. Jody Heiss.
Thank you, Chairman, and we appreciate you being here today. Look, lessons last night to be learned from Virginia and New Jersey. Bottom line is two things. Number one, the American people soundly reject socialism in our country. Secondly, the American people reject woke politics in our country. And yet the Democrats, as the Chairman shared, have welded together these two bills, infrastructure and reconciliation, and their intent is to continue to cram these things down the throat of the American people. And the fact is that any member of Congress who supports these are supporting the radical socialist woke politics of Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and the Democratic Party. Anyone who supports these would be standing for out-of-control spending, outrageous welfare programs, the Green New Deal extremism, woke politics like CRT, burdensome tax hikes, and all sorts of regulations. The reality is any Republican who supports and votes for these bills could very well be called no Republican at all. And with that, it's my privilege to turn the mic over to my friend from Arizona, Mr. Swiker.
This is one of those moments, if you actually sort of step back and look at the model and what it actually does, let's actually be honest. We have the modeling. It basically says the so-called Build Back Better means build back poorer. With the University of Chicago study from a couple weeks ago, makes it very clear the poor are, by the end of the decade, are actually poorer by the design of the model. And then you have the cynicism of what is referred to as the infrastructure bill. The reality of it is half of it isn't paid for. Well, hell, in the latest iteration, and we don't have all the details, $750 billion isn't paid for. I'm sorry, we know this place is about theatrics, but at some point, does anyone here give a damn about making the poor less poor and not subsidizing the rich? Because the legislation has hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of subsidies that ultimately just go to the rich. And I actually think that's a very cynical thing to do. And my buddy, where's Ralph? There's Ralph. It's yours.
Thank you, Dave. You know, this is a great day in America. The race, what happened in Virginia last night with the governor's race, said a lot of things about America. America said no to defund the police. America said no to sky-high gas prices. America said no to open borders. America said no to hiring 80,000 IRS agents to monitor and snoop on your $600 investment and up. America said no to leaving Americans in Afghanistan. All that to say is we're now approaching two bills that every Republican ought to vote against. It's not Build Back Better, it's Bankrupt America Quicker. That's what these two bills do. And any Republican that votes for this is for bankrupting this country. As David and others have said, it's not paid for. And look at the tax increases that are coming on the heels of the greatest pandemic this country has ever seen that's put businesses in handcuffs. So I urge every Republican, say no to both of them. Don't help the Socialist Democrats pass their agenda. I now pass it on to Warren Davidson.
Thanks, Ralph. It's just an honor to be joined by colleagues here that are making the point that Build Back Better is really Build Back Bankrupt. And it's important to remind people it's not compassionate to bankrupt America, morally or financially. These bills do both. Frankly, they're bad on math and they're bad on policy. They're bad for ag because they destroy the underpinnings of our ag economy. But they impose new taxes, essentially new made in America taxes that make it harder to succeed here in the United States of America. We do not need that. We look at the supply chain problems with things stacked up at the border. We look at the inflation that's hitting working families and retirees especially hard. And we know that if we made more things here in America, we would be better off. This bill makes it harder to do that. It makes it harder to manufacture, harder to farm, harder to do business here, and it creates less opportunity. Frankly, it disincentivizes participation in our economy, and it's just so bad on policy. Our country sent a clear message in every election. We want more freedom and less government. This bill is just more government and less freedom. It's got it backwards. Good governments defend freedom, and that's what we do here in the Freedom Caucus. It's an honor to be followed by Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Thank you. Well, first off, congratulations to the Atlanta Braves for winning the World Series. So excited.
We're divided in the House.
Well, we won. Okay, so the beginning of the red wave that we just saw yesterday should wake the Democrat Party up. This was a referendum on their policies while all they've been doing is blaming President Trump, attacking President Trump, and saying anything they can bad about Trump supporters. The real issue that's happening is the infrastructure bill and the budget are phase 1 and phase 2 of the Green New Deal, which are going to be more policies that the American people are going to reject. The reason why is we don't want to rely on China to drive a car. We do not want to move over to green energy that's going to cause rolling blackouts across America and cause our energy prices to skyrocket, making everyone's electric bill impossible to pay. We're already struggling to buy gas at the gas pump, food at the grocery store, and seeing empty shelves. America has a real issue on our hands, and that issue is the Democrat Party, who is falling in line with the progressives, and the progressives hate America and are America last. So what we need to do is we need to see the GOP conference, every single Republican do their job, vote no to the infrastructure bill, stand up and fight against this reconciliation budget, which is nothing but America last, and then we can continue forward and carry this red wave into 2022. I turn this over. Let's see who is next. Davidson MG. All right, Representative Higgins.
Thank you, Marjorie. Thank you all for being here. To my Republican colleagues that intend to vote in support of this so-called infrastructure bill, which is 9% actual infrastructure and 91% socialist garbage, pay attention, because I'm talking to you now. If you support this bill, sneak into the chamber and vote at the last minute, vote yes, and then roll out and immediately launch your carefully structured talking points to defend your betrayal. This is the administration and the policies that you're actually supporting. In Afghanistan, we witnessed a disgrace, American shame brought upon our country. American citizens abandoned to the horrors of Taliban torture. A border collapse we have witnessed, a disintegration of our sovereignty at the southern border. Americans killed by cartel fentanyl, while illegals have been offered 450 grand cash because their feelings were hurt. OPEC begged to increase oil production, while American oil and gas industry leaders and companies have been attacked relentlessly, and American pipelines like Keystone shut down, while Russian pipelines supported and dirty Russian natural gas shipped into our country. CRT racist indoctrination forced upon our schools by the left, while American parents are targeted and persecuted by the Biden DOJ for having the audacity to exercise their First Amendment right to show up at their own school board meetings in their own communities to redress their concerns. American families being forced into unconstitutional vaccination oppression and federal mandates that free Americans are forced to reveal our private medical information. These are families being forced into financial ruin by this agenda that you would support by voting yes on this infrastructure bill and then running and hiding. You can't hide from the truth, and the Freedom Caucus is going to shine a light on it. If you're a Republican and you vote to support the Biden-Pelosi agenda, then you're clearly identifying yourself as a rhino career politician who has no core principles. We the people expect Republicans to serve, not rule, and we the people will remember your vote. I yield to my next colleague in the Freedom Caucus. Under Higgins. Ms. Boebert, our friend.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, we all saw the resident of the White House napping while he's overseas, and we don't know for sure if he really crapped himself. I think Democrats were crapping themselves this morning after they saw the victory in Virginia, because Americans are rising up. They are fully awake, they are paying attention, and they are rejecting this woke nonsense. All across America, moms and dads are pissed off. And if you want to get something accomplished, get a group of pissed off moms together, because we will make sure that we have the results that we want. Despite being called domestic terrorists by the Attorney General of this country, moms showed up to vote in Virginia, and that's what we're to continue to see. And that's what both Democrats and Republicans here in the United States Capitol need to be paying attention to. Just because you call something bipartisan does not make it bipartisan. This infrastructure plan is garbage. You want to pass infrastructure? Pass my American Infrastructure Modernization Act that takes $650 billion of unspent COVID funding that's already been approved by Congress, doesn't create new spending or new debt or raise taxes on American taxpayers. If they wanted to actually make sense of any of this with their budget reconciliation, they would have taken out the $200 million earmark for the Presidio in Speaker Pelosi's district. But no, the arguments were the speaker deserves a little extra in this bill. Well, I'm here to say the members of Congress don't deserve anything. That is the American taxpayers' money, and we don't deserve to spend extra of it. That's not what we're here for. We're here to defend the American people. And they can make up all the garbage that they want about this, but the American people are absolutely not buying it. I am proud to stand with members of the Freedom Caucus, putting out the message of what's really in this. More than 70% of the American people don't know what's in this package. They're being lied to each and every day. And you know, even as someone who stands before you with a GED, I'm smart enough to know that $7 trillion, no matter how much Common Core math you use, does not equal zero. I reject this. I reject any Republican that votes for this. I'm here because, hey, I'm a professional rhino hunter, and I will go all throughout the nation taking down Republicans who help Democrats pass this nonsense. And with that, I pass this over to my good friend Andrew Clyde from Georgia.
Thank you, Lauren, my colleague from Colorado. And thank you to the House Freedom Caucus colleagues for continuing to highlight the Democrats' big government socialist spending bill. Despite Democrats scaling back their tax and spend spree from a face value of $4.3 trillion down to only $1.75 trillion, their reckless reconciliation bill is still saturated with radical policies that will forever alter the course of our great country. Taxpayer-funded abortion, mass amnesty for illegal immigrants, tax hikes for small businesses, weaponizing the IRS, tax cuts for the wealthy, higher gas prices and heating bills, nationalization of early education, socialized medicine, and the list goes on and on. Meanwhile, the woke left is blissfully ignoring the laundry list of crises the Biden administration has imposed on the American people. Skyrocketing inflation, a raging border crisis, the Afghanistan debacle, a supply chain disaster, workforce shortages despite over 10 million job openings, and surging crime. Injecting trillions of more dollars to advance the Democrats' big government socialism wish list will only make these crises worse. No wonder that 71%, yes, 71% of Americans think that the country is on the wrong track. Republicans must be united in defeating both of these bills, both the $1.2 trillion 9% infrastructure bill and the $1.75 trillion Biden-Bernie bankruptcy package. Both bills are wrong for small businesses, they're wrong for parents, they're wrong for families, and they're wrong for the future of our nation. And not one Republican should vote for it. And for that matter, neither should any reasonable Democrat. No representative with a lick of sense should vote for either of these bills and support either bill. Thank you, and I yield to my colleague from Texas, Congressman Louis Gohmert.
Right?
Nope. Okay. Then Representative Harrell.
Well, of course.
Well, thank you.
I mean,
Thank you so much for being here. And you heard from my colleagues today, this bill is the largest tax hike to the American people in American history. And what this bill signifies is a willingness to go ahead and ruin our America, the America that we know and love. I mean, this is going to vilify those who create jobs, who create opportunities, who educate our children. I mean, this is kind of like history repeats itself. You know, Nancy Pelosi, you got to pass it to see what's in it. There's not an appetite here to pass this bill. We don't want this passed because it's not good for America. What we don't need is more IRS. What we do need is more honesty from the press. The stories need to be real. You need to be saying what's in the bill, how it's going to affect the American people, and what lies in store for our economy and for our future if something this disastrous gets through. And really, if it wasn't so serious, it'd be laughable. But just remember this, you know the sting. You heard it all through the campaign a couple years ago. Feel the burn. This is nothing more than Bernie Sanders' budget bill. So let me tell you, the only people that are going to get burned if we pass this, if the Democrats pass this, are you, the American people. No one should be voting for this, we should be putting the American values first and foremost and not play games with the future of our country. And with that, I turn it over to my good friend Randy Weber.
Thank you, Yvette. Thank you all for being here. I'm proud to stand with my colleagues here in the Freedom Caucus. Last night, you've all heard about the old woke. Last night, we see a new woke. Virginians and Americans have become awoke to the Biden's, what I call Biden, Obama's third term. They become awoke to this, and they hate his socialism. Biden has his own MAGA platform, MAGA, but this one means Make America Grovel Again. He wants to take us back to the days before the Tax Cuts and Job Act, all of the progress we made. Last night, you saw people vote for this truism. The bedrock of America has always been and still is the family. It still is the family. Last night showed us what the people in America want. It's really not complicated. They get it. They understand. It's simple. It's awesome just to live a happy life. That's what they want. They want to know what's going on with their children in the classrooms. They want to put food on the table. They want to know that their community is safe. It's pretty simple what Americans want. We saw them vote for it last night. Any of my Democrat colleagues, pay attention. Americans are coming after you, Democrats, to vote you out. And by the way, that needs to be the Grinch that's in the White House that's going to kill this coming Christmas, coming up with his policies. Americans do not want CRT in their schools. They do not want less police on the streets, and really do not want any part of Biden's tax and spend spree, which will only cripple our strained economy, already strained. And the Democrats are going to couple these two together? Didn't they get last night? No, they're going to double down, dare I say. They're going to double down on their reckless spending. Not one of our colleagues, Republicans, Democrats, any of them, should vote for any of these ridiculously bloated bills. Not a single one. We need to get back to basics. You've heard it up here. Limited government spending and overreach so we can actually put American families first. I said it about Biden. He needs to get off of his Make America Grovel Again policy. The Democrats shouldn't have coupled these two together. They shouldn't be doubling down on these two bills. But they've got to quit focusing on giving Biden what he wants. You've all heard the saying, let's go, Brandon. Well, maybe it ought to be, let go, Biden. I now yield to my good friend, Mr. Good.
Thank you to my House Freedom colleagues for drawing continued attention to this issue. With $29 trillion in national debt, about $85,000 per citizen already owed by this government. This government has no money. It only takes it from the people through compulsory taxes. We cannot call ourselves the party of fiscal responsibility if one Republican votes for this $1.1 trillion infrastructure bill, the lesser of the two bills. If this was a standalone bill, every Republican should vote against it. If it was a good bill, every Republican should vote against it because we don't have the money. But only 10% of it is true infrastructure. So 90% of it is bad, 10% of it is good. But within that 90%, this is really Bernie, AOC, and Buttigieg's infrastructure bill. The one crisis Biden hasn't created is an infrastructure crisis. We don't have an infrastructure crisis. We don't need to spend $100 billion giving Pete Buttigieg a slush fund to make travel in our cities harder. Think bike routes like we have in D.C. with no bikes. $50 billion for Amtrak, which should be privatized anyway. Would you like to fly on a government-controlled airline, or you like private competition, but yet we want to pour $50 billion into Amtrak? This is the gateway bill to help pass the broke-back bankrupt bill, which is the worst bill in the history of the country, but no Republican should vote for this $1.1 trillion infrastructure bill. Somebody, please don't tell Democrats what comes after $1 trillion. And I yield to Tom Tiffany from Wisconsin.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. And let's be clear, who linked the infrastructure bill to the reconciliation bill? Speaker Pelosi, President Biden, and Senator Sanders. They're the ones that said that we have to pass one to get the other. They are the ones that linked those two bills together. I just want to give you a brief example of what's happening around the country. My friends and neighbors, I have one of the districts that uses the most propane for a heating fuel in the country, rural Wisconsin. We paid 80 cents a gallon, my friends, neighbors, and constituents, a year ago. 80 cents a gallon. They're now paying over $2 a gallon. And they're questioning if there's going to be shortages this year. That's before these bills are passed. You pass these bills, it's going to make it even worse. I think the important thing, though, is that we, as a caucus here, we are talking about solutions. And you heard from Representative Boebert. I would throw a couple others out there. Senator Cornyn has a bill to repurpose $122 billion. That's already, I believe, went through the United States Senate. You could use existing dollars to fund infrastructure. Our ranking member, Representative Graves, he has put forth a bill, I believe $450 billion, that is just about infrastructure. If you want to fund infrastructure, let's make sure we're doing that not on wasteful programs that have nothing to do with infrastructure. We can do this. They should come and talk to us. President Biden should call for this caucus, or perhaps our leadership, to come visit him in the White House, and we will give him a real proposal that will rebuild America. Thank you. Dan Bishop.
Thank you, sir. I'm Dan Bishop from North Carolina. A lot of my colleagues have exhorted the handful of Republicans who consider voting in support of the, quote, bipartisan infrastructure bill. We've made the case that that will pave the way for the Democrats' massive, it's really a $4 trillion per decade. It's not even one decade, because it's going to go on once you establish entitlements. It'll go on into the future. They're going to have to take $2 trillion in new taxes out of the economy, squeezing so tightly that they're going to supposed to get $400 billion by cracking down on people through the Internal Revenue Service. That's what they're going to do. So what we're here for today, as far as I'm concerned, is to persuade constituents of those handful of Republicans that will advance their ball by voting for the infrastructure package to understand what's happening. Everyone's already recited the evidence of the linkage by all the important people Representative Tiffany made, by all the examples of statements made, as Chairman Biggs said at the very beginning. But has something changed by virtue of what happened in Virginia last night? Has the Democratic caucus responded with a fit of moderation to say, well, no, we need to come back and do something moderate, like an infrastructure-only package, even if it were that, which it's not? No. This morning, according to the Wall Street Journal, Nancy Pelosi said the Democrats are going to add back into the bill a federally funded paid leave program. And Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois, the number 2 Senate Democrat, said Wednesday that Democrats should move briskly after the results of Tuesday night, which he called disappointing but not surprising. Some Democratic lawmakers said the party's loss in Virginia's governor's race Tuesday underscored the need to quickly pass both the social spending and climate plan and the parallel infrastructure bill that has been held up in the House. So to the constituents out there, you are those to whom we are speaking. If your Republican representative is one who will advance that ball, even after the message that the voters in Virginia sent last night, call them, text them, email them, tell them, don't do it. I yield back, and I think we have one more. The Representative Louis Gohmert, Texas.
Thank you, Dan. This is a very dangerous time. People are spending out the nose for fuel, and it's related to this administration making it harder to get fuel. That's ridiculous. But the spending is causing inflation to just skyrocket. And that is the worst tax. If you care about individuals, if you care about the poor people, the little guys, what we hear from Democrats on, this is the worst thing you can do. As people have talked about before, like including John Dingell, if you want to hurt the middle class, the lower middle class, those on fixed income, then run up the cost of fuel. It's inconvenient to the mega wealthy, but it is devastating to the poor. And if you look at what Obama and Biden did in their 8 years, they talked a big game about going after the wealthy, but for the first time in American history, 95% of the nation's income went to the top 1%. That's crazy, but they helped the mega wealthy. Biden's doing it again. And if you look at the value of a black home in the 8 years of Obama, Biden, it went down 30%. Black homes net worth went down 30% during Biden and Obama, and they're doing it again. It's got to stop. They're hurting the people that used to vote Democrat. We saw it last night. We just want the inflation to stop, the wasteful spending to stop, and this ridiculous infrastructure bill, what a misnomer. It's got to stop. Let's do real infrastructure. And I'll yield to my friend Barry Moore.
I'd like to say they saved the best for last, but I was just running late. But thank y'all for being here today, and I'm honored to serve with these folks in the House Freedom Caucus. But you know, Ronald Reagan had a saying. He said, the government's idea on the economy, if it's moving, you tax it. If it keeps moving, you regulate it. When it fails, you subsidize it. We are consistently taxing and regulating small businesses out of business, but all that spending we're doing, guys, that 1.9 trillion, I've been here 10 months. We passed that within the first few weeks that I was here. Most of that money hadn't been spent, but you can see a direct result of that spending on your bottom line. When we print money in Washington, D.C., it's paper with ink on it. It has no substance behind it. It's just the federal government saying, hey, this is the dollar, this is the U.S. dollar. It continues to decline as we print it. This new spending package they're trying to hit us with, guys, it's not about infrastructure. It's about printing and spending and paying off their friends. And so let me say this, too. You see these gas prices, guys? Joe Biden's energy policies coupled with inflation is what you're going to see this coming Christmas and into the next year. And Biden's energy policy is this. Basically, we shut down the Keystone Pipeline. We give Russia a green light to pump more gas. Then we ask OPEC to pump more for us to buy. And at the end of the day, we're going to buy our solar panels from China. He is destroying the American energy industry. We are printing money, creating inflation, and it's hitting the middle-class family. Thank you for your time. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chairman Biggs.
I thank everybody from the Freedom Caucus who let you in on what we're thinking, and thank you for being here. I'll just conclude before I take a question or two by just saying the key takeaway here is we implore our fellow Republicans, don't vote for this infrastructure bill. Don't do that. Don't provide the key that unlocks that horrible reconciliation package. These things are linked together. They've admitted it. It's their goal to link them together, and they're not separating them. So please vote no. That's our message. Now, just to take a question or two. Yep.
Mr. Biggs, for the past few months, most households with parents have been getting hundreds of dollars for their kids from the child tax credit, and Democrats want to continue that through next year as part of Build Back Better.